Hey there. How's it going? I hope everyone is doing well today. I'm doing pretty okay myself today, hanging in there. I'm excited for another stream of playing the All State Etudes. Of course, the Tuba ones. And we're going to go similar format that we did last stream that we did, I think it was 2 weeks ago now. If you were here for it. If you weren't, basically what we'll do, I'll just start by giving some general tips and stuff, and then we'll go through each of the etudes. Probably not going to go as long as we did the previous time, just because I presented a lot of tips in the previous stream, but yeah, it is Tuba time. Hello, Jonathan. Thanks for coming by. Appreciate you for being here. But yeah, we'll go through each of the etudes, start middle school, work our way up to the symphonic band level, and do lyrical, technical, lyrical, technical, lyrical, technical for each level. And if you're watching, have any questions about any of the etudes, feel free to ask as we get to them, or just whenever, you know. Yeah. But I hope you're doing well, Jonathan. Thanks for coming by again. I appreciate it. Just gotta, clean the old tuba, clean out that spit and stuff, But yeah, so that's the general plan. Just playing through them, offering some general tips and things. Yeah, but like I said, the main difference between this stream and last stream is I'm not sight reading anymore. The last stream I did this, of course, I was sight reading, so I intentionally did two takes for each one. One as an initial sight read, and another one as we practice it for 10 minutes. Here's the result. But yeah. Nice. Yeah, I saw that that's on streaming services now. Definitely have to check that out soon. But yeah, cool. That's good. But yeah, so we'll just, like I said, we'll go through each etude. I'll talk about each one really briefly. I will say, even though I'm feeling confident in my performance, pretty confident in my performance of all these etudes today. I didn't get quite as much time to work on them as I wanted to over the week or two since the last stream. But having said that, I'm still, like I said, I've gone through them enough that I'm like, yeah, this is fine. So I won't say today's going to be absolutely perfect performances. In fact, I'm just going to throw this out there just as my thoughts and opinions about perfection, but if you're striving to perform perfectly, you're in a wrong line of business, my friend. Sure, it is a good thing to strive for, I think, but we have to always realize that perfection isn't going to come very easily, which is okay. That's perfectly fine. But the biggest thing is just try your best, do your best, and that'll show through. But yeah, and this won't be the last stream for All State stuff. I'll be doing a scale stream in the next couple weeks sometime, where we're gonna break down scales, talk about. I'll first start just like give some general tips on how to learn scales, the major scales and stuff, I should say, not all scales. I mean, I guess it applies to most scales, but yeah, so we'll start with what's familiar with the major and diatonic scales, that is 7-note scales. Um, we'll talk about those. We'll talk about the theory behind them, and then we'll also talk about some of the more chromatic scales and talk about the theory behind those. But stay tuned for that. I think my plan for those is I'm going to try to have them. It'll probably end up being 2 weeks from now, but we'll see. Stay tuned. Um, like it said in my opening screens, follow me on Instagram or make sure to subscribe here for more updates. Those are about the only 2 places I'm posting right now. I will say, however, there's something in the works for a potential website, so stay tuned for that. And that'll be a good place to keep up with what I'm up to as well. And let me think. Is there anything else I need to say before I get to this? I don't think so. But okay. Cool. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. So first, I just want to offer a few general tips before we get into the middle school etudes. Take your time. Use a metronome and a tuner to help you tune notes and stay in time. Even with some of the lyrical ones, we still want to make sure our time is steady. It doesn't have to be perfect for sure, but we want to have a steady case of time. So we're just moving, and yeah. Let's get Tuba this. Yep. But yeah, so you really want to focus on taking your time, use the tools, use technology to help you put all this stuff together. Yeah, take your time. I know for me, even with a couple of these, like I think all of them are balanced really well. The middle school ones are great for middle school. The concert band ones are great for 9th, 10th grade. And the symphonic band ones are great for 9, 10. They scale very well with the level that they're made for, which I think is great. And I know even with the top one, I was kind of struggling, and we'll probably hear a little bit of that struggle today. I know when I was practicing early today, just to kind of make sure I had them mostly down, that was the one that was kind of had a couple of little spots where it's tripping me up. So make sure you take your time. We'll talk about what specific things I think you should work on and how you should work on it as we get to them. But just take your time, break things down. Don't just run things all the time. My general philosophy with practicing etudes like this, or this extends to solo work too. If you're doing like a solo for a recital at the end of the year or end of semester or something, the general time, because I assume by now you've probably read it at least once. I hope you have. If you haven't started working on the all state stuff, that's perfectly fine. You still have plenty of time. But just whenever you do, I highly recommend first time, just run through it. Even if you get mixed up, you get lost, you miss a lot of notes, try your best just to go from start to finish. Then take a second to think about which parts went really bad, which parts went okay, and which parts what we need to do to make the really bad things into really okay or great things. So just really break it down and just write a list of things. And then as you practice more over the months, think about each of those things and how you can practice those. Like maybe it's you're not hitting the high notes consistently, then I would say we need to take time to focus a little bit more on scales maybe, and try to expand our scales if it's a range thing. Which could be like, for example, if you're in middle school and you already have all of your scales down pat, maybe it's time to think about adding a second octave to a couple of those scales. Like adding the second, I think a big one, I think one of the most important two octave scales to get under your belt besides F, um, is the B flat scale. If you can get the B flat scale B flat two octave scale under your belt, you're good, because that's the highest, literally the highest scale you're required to play for all state. Of course, we can go higher, we can go plenty lower, but for all states consideration, that's the limit for what is expected of you. So, just getting the two octave B flat scale in your belt, even as a middle schooler, can really help you a lot in aiming for that top high range. And I would say when you're working towards the higher ranges, take your time. Like start from, you can even start as low as middle F, but I would say like start from like B flat, like second line of the staff, or A, I don't know, somewhere around there. And you can do groupings of 3 notes, just thinking like in like a B flat scale pattern, or along lines of B flat major scale, or F major scale, and just following that scale pattern in 3 notes at a time. F, G, A, B flat. I'll play a little bit of this. And unlike how I just played it, I would highly recommend playing it slurred. And I'll demonstrate going low because there's plenty of times when we'll have low notes, right? Because I think I don't think the middle school etudes have any like. I think the lowest they go to maybe an A or a G, but I know for sure the concert band ones go down to a low F. So we can do the same thing going down, but making sure slur. The point of this is we're trying to slur, start somewhere comfortable, and we're spreading that comfortable sound all the way down. So here's what that would sound like if I'm going to start from like a C and work my way down to a E and beyond. Something like that. And as you might have noticed with both ranges, when I went higher and when I went lower, I went a little bit beyond like the kind of the high range and that high F and that low F. I think a really good tip for expanding range is if you're trying to aim for like, let's take, I think it's the concert band technical or lyrical that has a high G flat in there. Instead of just aiming for the G flat, I think to get to the G flat, we need to aim higher than the G flat. So just keeping that in mind. But anyways, without further ado, how about you just play an etude, and we'll talk more about these kinds of things as they come up. But basically, my 2 main tips overall, just take your time, break things down, or, oh, I'm sorry, I got lost in talking about range building. So I was talking about a good way to think about to plan out your schedule from now until the auditions. Right now, if you haven't started first time, run it through, right? Write down all the things you want to do to work on it. Spend like the next month, maybe 2. Then when November hits, spend the next month or 2 until like from like September through October, mostly breaking things down. Like, of course, run through it occasionally, but focus on focus on measures at a time. So like play the first measure, or first measure plus a note. I think that's also important, is overlapping. Not just being like, okay, measure, 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 but measure plus a note, connect things, overlap things. Think about sections that are like this, where it's like, here's one section, and then you start from in the middle of this last section to another section. So you're overlapping things. And it's not just piece, 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 piece. Because that can work too, but I think overlapping a little bit can help to bridge the gaps between those pieces. So just think about that as you're practicing. And then once we get, like, I would say halfway through October, especially into November, start focusing on a little bit more on making sure to run your etude, run the lyrical etude every day you practice. Just run it straight through at least once, maybe 2 or 3 times. And then also in that time, if you're starting to feel like very comfortable with the lyrical etude, start working on the technical. I don't super recommend working on the technical until you feel comfortable with the first part, because obviously if we're not comfortable with the first part, even by the time of the audition, odds are we're probably not going to have to play the second part. So focus on the first part until you feel pretty comfortable with it, then add the second part. I will say, however, if you're feeling like really bogged down with the first part and you just need something to break the mold, like something to distract from getting stuck in that one etude, you can take some time to look at the technical. Or you can practice sight reading by reading the other etudes. Or just looking for, like, for example, I think all of the etudes are based on etudes from etude books that are pre-established. So look for those specific etude books and try to read etudes from those to break things up, so you're not just constantly working on this one etude. Because that's good. It is good to focus a lot on that, but it is also good to diversify your practice. So if you practice the same exact way, we're going to get like same exact results from day 1 all the way through the last day. So just a couple little things to think about. If you have any questions about any of that, let me know. Or just like if you have any questions about how do I practice this, feel free to ask. I wanted to do this. I want to change the title a little bit, just to say AMA, like ask me anything, because I really want anyone who's here to ask me any questions they have about these. I just will say, let's get rid of that. That's not indicative. You can ignore the timestamps in the description aren't indicative of the time for today. That was I just copied this from my last stream. Yeah, so I'm gonna just do this. Playing. I should have done this before stream, but it's fine. We're discussing all of the 2025 GMEA All State Etudes for Tuba. Feel free to ask any questions you have about playing these etudes. Yes, I think that's a great description. I will add there's one other thing I thought about. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say about asking questions, just ask the question about etudes. Don't include any personal information about yourself. That's the only thing I ask. Because I know, yeah, that's the only thing. Anyways. Okay, cool. We good to go? Ask me anything. That's what AMA means, I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure. And the tuba in general. Okay, cool. So without further ado, let's get into it. Here is the middle school lyrical etude. All right. Yes. All right, cool. And that looks fine. All right. Because I realized when I was looking back at some of the previous stream, oh, I need to turn this back on. When I was looking at some of the previous stream, I don't think I always paid attention to where the PDF viewer was, so sometimes it wasn't the clearest. So I apologize for that, but I will pay more attention to it this time. Anyways, that's enough talking for the moment. Let's play. I will say one thing. I checked all my levels beforehand, so I think everything's sounding fine, but if you have trouble hearing something or it's too loud, blah, 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 something wrong with my audio, please let me know. Another common thing I heard from when I was listening back to my last stream is that sometimes I forgot to turn off this mic, which made the overall audio different, not as clear. So I will try to be better about that, turning this mic off when I'm playing this, because it's... Anyways. Here we go. I talk too much sometimes. All right. Oops. Cool. That went pretty well, I thought, overall. So most of my little things were just small little chips here and there. Yeah, and I just played that first F like 5 times just to make sure I really had it clear, because I know, I didn't feel great about it the first time I played it, which I think is important to do. Just something I actually just started doing in some of my lessons this year. And I might have done this in the past, but it's been a long time since I've done this, if I did. But something you might want to do is just do a random thing where you have some, either you like have something that picks random notes for you, or you have a friend that picks random notes for you, and just play random notes just to focus on like really nailing that note. I think that's a interesting, good exercise just in trying to nail every single note well. But let's talk about a couple things with this. I think the good thing with this, when we go up to the higher notes, there's usually some sort of crescendo into them. Like, I mean, I feel like all the times we go to the D, there's some sort of crescendo. Of course, the first two times there's a written crescendo, right? I'm gonna make sure to use the draw thing this time, but we have this, right? We have this crescendo up to the D here. I don't stop it. And then we have another crescendo right here, going to this second D. And I would say, I think a challenge with this one, especially since it's for middle school, because it has so many of these like dotted eighth sixteenths that we usually would categorize as more technical, march-like, something not lyrical. I feel like a challenge with this is making it sound lyrical. So just think broad strokes, and that'll help you kind of achieve that. And then especially when you get here, try to think more slur-like. Even though the slurs, like they have it dotted this year, instead of actual slur lines, which is, I mean, how a lot of these etudes in the Bordoni are. A lot of the phrases are slurred just to show the phrases versus they actually want you to slur it. But I think for occasions like this, I think it's more okay to slur these so that these sound more smooth and lyrical. And then just making sure when we're getting down here, because I think these last two bars are rhythmically the hardest parts. So just making sure to think about these 16ths. 1 E and da 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 da. Same thing here. Da 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 dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da. Just keep that 16th note pattern in your head. You can even play it exactly like that. And then I would say, like, you can make up your own little things for crescendos. And I would say these little phrases with these accents that happens here and here. You can kind of use these as crescendos. So da 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 da, and here you're kind of like immediately going down. Of course, you're not here. You don't want to go super big. I would say like mezzo forte, mezzo piano here, and then of course here we have it written. But I say that because here especially, it's like, I mean, you can make this subito, sudden, like a sudden change from da 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 da. But I think it would be a little bit better to think, again, thinking lyrical, to connect it. Da 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 da. Kind of crescendo through this. Use these dotted sixteenths here to crescendo into this D here. And I feel like the plus side of using these crescendos to get to these higher Ds is we can really let loose and let them come out. Because right as we go higher, notes get harder to hit, and this is no exception. The other thing I will say with working on getting higher is even just doing lip slurs is a really great way of doing it. You can even reverse something I started doing, I think it was a year or two ago, a couple years ago, but instead of starting purely from open position, we can start from 2 and 4 and work our way backwards. So we can start from we can do like a slur of, I really should have opened up finale so I could write things, but we can do B natural, E, and I think A is the top one for that grouping. Let me play it for a second. So it would be the pattern would start with we'd start with see if I can make this look better. B natural, E. Actually, hold on. Is there an eraser here? Eraser. That's a horrible eraser. Okay, whatever. We're just gonna do. uh, yeah. So we'll do. So this would be the basic exercise that we'd start with. We'd start B natural, E, and then we'll go up to A flat. I know that's bad, but drawing with a mouse is hard. One of these days, maybe I'll try to get one of those pads so I can actually like draw it out. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, so we're doing this. We're doing 1, 2, and 3, or 2, 4 for all of these. You can do them on the original fingers just to get the idea of what it sounds like, but you want to try to keep to that fingering, whichever you choose. And then we're going to go up. We're going to go C, F, and A natural, and then D flat, F sharp, and B flat, etc., etc. But the point of this is we're working our way upwards instead of the traditional, like, where it goes, the traditional lip slurs, which go downwards. So I'll demonstrate. First, I'll just show you, like, the traditional. I'm just going to keep this basic. 3 notes. And then that last note we know is the D. And then if you're feeling comfortable with the 3-note pattern, you do 4 notes. So we go, the bass pattern of this would be up to, is it C? C flat? I think it's C flat. Let me play it once just to get the note. Yeah, it is. Yeah, so it would be C flat that we'd go to. You just add. Oh, that was really terrible. We just go up to here. I probably should zoom in to make this easier for myself, but we're already committed to this. Yeah, so we do that, and you kind of get what I'm saying, right? You can just keep going with this. Ba-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da, etc., etc. And you start lower where it's more comfortable, and then we go higher, keeping this same pattern going. But anyways, that's just a few little ideas on how to build range. Because that's always, I feel like, especially as in the earlier stages, that's one of the biggest issues. But then, like I said, the biggest thing with these last 2 bars, always keep these 16ths in mind. And just keeping that. I would say take it slower. Like, we don't have to go here, but yeah. Anyways, I think we're just gonna keep it like that. Obviously, there's little things I can improve on, but I think generally I was pretty satisfied with the way I played it. Oh, and you can take a breath here or here. It doesn't super matter which one you want to do, I don't think. Different teachers will probably do different things. Um, the biggest thing is that you have to choose one or the other, I think. So it's either you breathe here and then you don't breathe again until here, or you'll keep going through and you breathe here and you breathe here. Both are comparable choices, I think. But I'll play this one more time and then we'll move on to the technical. Cool. And I forgot to silence the one mic, didn't I? Well, anyways, that was pretty good. We're gonna move on. Yeah, so here I ignored both of the options I provided, right? I just moved. That's the third option. You can just keep going through and breathe here. But whichever you choose is fine. Just biggest thing with any sort of changes you do, convince your audience that is what you want to do. Okay. Technical etude. Let me make sure this one looks fine here. Yeah, let's move it over just a smidge. Like that. Yeah, that's much better. Okay, cool. Technical etude. Let's play it. Yeah, that was actually really good playthrough of that, I think. I'm not going to play it again because I feel like that was solid enough. So, biggest thing with this, like I said with the previous one about 16ths, keep these eighths in mind. Dot, 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 1 and a 2 and a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. Total. Keep that going in your head. I would say for because they won't care in the audition if you sit there for a second, just think. I mean, maybe not humming it out loud, but just like. just getting that in your head so that when you get to playing it, it's smooth in time and the groove is there. So the big thing with this one is isolating these kind of treble spots. These arpeggios, I feel like, are the trickiest parts of this. Like this one is weird. And then of course all these ones down here that also repeat down here. But once you get it once or twice, it'll be fine, I think. Just making sure those are clear and where the right notes are being played, right? So like this one, D, B flat, F, D, right? Basically some sort of, it's a B flat arpeggio. We're just, instead of starting and ending on a B flat, we're starting and ending on a D. And then similar here, this is based off of what, like a C arpeggio? A arpeggio. It's an A-ish arpeggio with a D there. I mean, I think the D is, because I think the thing with these little passages, I'm just going to get rid of that last one, is that this whole measure is the B flat arpeggio over D. This whole measure is the A minor arpeggio over C. And then same here, this is a G? Yeah, G minor arpeggio over a B flat or G arpeggio, whatever you want to think. You don't have to think major, minor. But that is, I mean, that is what these are. So just thinking about, those are the notes of these. Ta 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 ta, ta 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 ta, ta 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 ta. So I would say just focusing like that, like ignoring these last notes, is a good way to practice this. Ta 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 ta. And you can even go, like, once again, if this D is like, you feel uncomfortable starting from this D, you can start here. Bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum. Or it's not exactly that, but and etc., etc., etc. We can do that with any of these arpeggios that show up that are like that. We can do that with this one. Reverse, start from the bottom. Bum, 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 bum. Of course, this part is not as much of an arpeggio, but of course these top 4 notes are an arpeggio. I know that's yeah, whatever. But anyways, that's just a way of thinking about how to go about practicing these little bits. Because of course this is the same as this basically. Let me double check. Blah 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 blah. Yep. Blah 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 blah. Yep. Blah 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 blah. Yep. Is the same. These 3 measures are the same as these 3 measures. I feel like it's another big thing about these etudes in general is you don't have to practice every single measure. Be smart. A lot of these etudes have repeating things where you play the same thing 2 or 3 times. So practice that same thing once or twice instead of, oh, I'm here, this is completely new. It's like, no, this is the same. Keep in mind all the stuff you worked on beforehand. I feel like the other challenge with this is all of the the style changes, articulation changes. We just need to make sure those are very clear. It's like, oh, that's what's happening here. As I will say, like, at first, I guess I was kind of confused why the articulations in these measures weren't, like, changing with the following pattern, like going ta 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 ti ta, or something like that, instead of ta 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 ta, like it's written. But it does make sense why it's the same, because each measure is the same chord. So it makes sense why it's like that. It's not just why is this like that? It seems random, but it's intentional. It's not some random thing that Rawlinson, or however it was who originally made this, was like, these need to be different. Or I don't know. This could be, I mean, it could be a thing where this is an alteration specifically for this etude, but I'm not familiar enough with the Rawlinson, whatever that is. So I couldn't tell you right now. But I think it makes sense why it's like this. So we just need to make sure we're articulating these differently. And generally, we just need to think like tenuto, full-length notes articulated, right? So these ones, because the way I like to think about accents, they look like mini decrescendos, right? So we need to think like that. Ta, 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 ta. But I would say with this short of a distance, we need to focus just more on making these more emphasized than these notes. So just think about this as like, when we get to these measures, it's basically mezzo forte plus. Or like we said with the previous one, you can think about this as crescendoing into the forte. Whichever floats your boat better. And then, of course, here we need to think bouncy with all these staccatos. And then like we talked about here, making sure these changes are exactly with these measures, and we're not trying to change this into a tenuto or this into a staccato, etc., etc. So just make sure to keep the right articulations with the right notes. And then here, it's the same. We're going to play this. This is like mezzo, it's like forte plus, basically, in this measure. And this measure is the same, except instead of thinking more separate with the notes, we're going to try to make them just a little bit more ta 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 ta. Versus these are going to be like more, I don't want to say staccato, but they are going to be more separated. Versus these ta 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 ta. Basically, if you want to think about it in terms of vowels, that's basically the way you want to think. But yeah, I think that's about all I need to talk about with this one. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, it has lots of random leaps, big leaps. So just working on getting those leaps clear, and you will have success. And yeah. And just biggest thing, if you're playing notes that are less comfortable with you, I would say it's okay to take some of these down an octave. Like this, you could practice dun 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 dun, and you could go down to the D here, because these are the same notes. This might be a little confusing to just change it like that, but I don't know. Could be a good way of thinking about that if you're not comfortable with that higher D first. Of course, eventually, yes, we do want to make sure we're playing exactly what's written, but as a practice technique, I think it's good to play these down an octave if you're not as comfortable playing that high D. Yeah. Okay, cool. If there's no other questions, we're going to move on. So I realize since we're not timing this one, I'm taking a lot more time on these. So I'll try to, for the next couple, I'll try to move slightly faster, but probably not. So I think my plan, we're going to end at 7 or so. So we have about another hour left. So 60 divided by 4 is about 15. So we'll spend about 15 minutes per etude. Yeah, like I said, I'm not playing this again. You want to hear my recording of it, and you're watching this live, you can go backwards and hear that. Or if you're watching this in the future, just go backwards. I think by that time, I'll probably have the timestamps. So you can just skip to the beginning of this segment and hear my performance of it. I'm not going to say it was absolutely perfect, but I don't think I could do better than that right now. So go back and listen to that. I think it came out really good. So let's move on to the lyrical for concert band. Yeah, and I think, speaking of that, I think a good piece of advice when you're working on these kinds of things is don't over practice. If you end and it feels comfortable, maybe play it once or twice more. And then move on. Because a big thing, especially if you're like recording it, which you probably won't be recording this, right? Unless something crazy happens, which, knock on wood, nothing happens. I know last year there was some craziness with the January All State auditions, but let's knock on wood on my desk that nothing happens. But yeah, just when you feel like it's good, it's good. And it's hard to tell, but I would say if you can't tell whether it's good or not. Talk to a friend, teacher, someone, parent, relative, whatever. Talk to someone. Say, hey, here's a recording of what I played. What do you think of it? And get their advice on it. Because it doesn't matter if they're like someone who like me has been playing tuba for a long time and has like lots of skill on tuba, or if it's someone who has no skill on tuba. Just getting the little bit of advice on it is very helpful. So just keep that in mind as you're practicing. It's important to know when you've hit it. Okay, let's play this concert band lyrical etude. And then another small piece of advice. You gotta keep going. If you make a mistake, do your best to keep moving forward. Yeah, like I just did, right? Right in these measures. I think this is literally the trickiest part of this etude. Of course, like this is kind of tricky too, because it's high in this, like in a high range too. But I think this is should be the number one priority to get this sounding right. First of all, we start with one of the bigger intervals with an octave skip there, right? Do, yi, and we go higher. Do, yi, ah, somewhere. If you want to think somewhere over the rainbow. But I don't think it's somewhere. It goes down, so it's not the same things here, right? But I would say a good way of practicing this a little bit is taking it down an octave. So play it down an octave where you can hear and feel the notes, and then switch it back up. Do, dee, da, 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 da. And this one's another one. Take your time. Slow this down, way down. I know that's what I've been doing when I've been practicing this. And the other thing to note, these two notes are pretty important. It doesn't change here. My natural tendency is thinking, it does change, right? But it doesn't. Da, 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 da. Instead of dee, dee, da, 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 dee, da, da. Doesn't go up. It stays on the same note. So I would say just practice a couple, like I said, take it down an octave, but practice dee da da da, dee da da da, e d, e d, e d c c, e d c c, and then play it up an octave, e d, e d, e d c c, e d c c, e d c c, or whichever fingering you like to use there. But just practice that so that you're getting that C there. I think that's a good thing. Dee da da dee da da dee. And I would say a good thing to practice, way to practice this, think 2 beats at a time. Da dee da dee da 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 dee da da dee. Like that. Like, I guess it's more like 1.5 beats at a time, or 1.25. I don't know, one beat plus the next beat. So I'm just going to demonstrate this. And then you can make it 2 beats plus a note. Piece it all together. Just for fun, I'll play it down an octave once, and then I'll play it from the here to like here. And another thing important with this one is to keep moving through it. Try your best to make this one complete phrase. If you need to take breath, breathe, take a small breath there. But otherwise, try your best to just keep moving all the way to this last C. Do, da, 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 ba, da, 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 dee, dee. And then, of course, getting this E like I said here, practice it down an octave just to hear the E. Right? Play it down here. And then play it up there. Da dee. You can even think like replace this one with the lower one and then play this one up the octave. And then eventually work your way into playing this one like it's written. So I'll demonstrate that. I'm just going to play from here to like here-ish. So that kind of makes sense with that. But yeah, and then the other thing is getting down to this low D. We talked about some low range stuff in the beginning of the stream, right? Descending down in small steps. Trying to go a little bit beyond here. Like try to really get this to come out. Try to see if you can nail this low E below it. Regardless of whether it's an E natural or E flat. Try to hit either one. If you can hit both, that's awesome. If you can only hit the E natural, that's fine too. The point is we're just trying to make this, we don't want this to be our limit, right? We don't want this to be a note that's just like, it's not coming out clearly. We want at the audition this to be a note that's comfortable and we can just kind of play. So I would recommend trying to go below it so this isn't like the absolute lowest of what we can play. So yeah, that's just a small little tip. And I can maybe do, if there's enough demand for it, I can maybe do a stream talking about some different techniques with low range stuff. Because we can also talk about false tones. Those can help to hit the low notes, although false tones can be very tricky to hit themselves. The other thing I'd say with our jaw, how our jaw moves to get down to the low notes like that, we need to think, yes, lower jaw, like ooh, open, right? But I think we also need to think, let me make sure this is clear, forward with the jaw. Like that a little bit. Because with the airflow through the tuba, we want to think moving the air upwards in the mouthpiece. Not always, but it will help us. Moving it more upwards will help us to get those lower notes out. Versus if we're moving our air down in the mouth. Because if we're doing that, it's going to go a little faster. I mean, not always, I can, but because we're moving our chin in, we're kind of forcing it to go higher. So, just a couple little things to think about with that. Where's my thing? Okay. Yeah, so use that. It's, what is it? There's a specific name for that technique of shifted jaw, I think is what it's called maybe. But we want to think pushing our jaw forwards to help bring those no notes out. Because ultimately, there's a limit to how open we can get, right? But the benefit of thinking more, it's also kind of like it's like a pouting kind of face a little bit, right? A little bit. The benefit of using that is that we keep our lips together. Versus if we just keep on lowering our jaw, eventually our mouth is just going to be open, which we absolutely don't want. Because if we as brass players open our mouths way too wide, nothing happens. Which is why for some of you, when you try to play certain notes, the only thing that comes out is air. That's because your lips are too far apart. So we need to make sure our lips don't go too far apart. Our lips need to be together always. Otherwise, nothing happens, right? Yeah, because that buzz happens from our lips vibrating together. Makes sense? Okay. Let's keep moving forward, shall we? I'm going to actually take just a second. I'm going to take a second to take a break. And then we'll get back. It'll probably be like 5 minutes. I just want to check on something really quick. And then when we get back, we're going to get to the technical concert band piece. Okay? Cool. All right, be right back. And we're back. Hello? 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 We're back. Sorry, I had to go check on I'm watching my roommate's dogs for the weekend, so I had to go check on them, make sure they're still dogs and doing things. Not doing crazy things, I should say. Anyways. And try to get this one dog to eat his food. But anyways, shall I move on? Do I have it up? That's the lyrical, technical. There it is. Technical. Alright, cool. So there's our technical one. Also looks like we gained a subscriber sometime during the stream. Thank you to whoever that was. I appreciate it a lot. The alerts seem to be very random. Sometimes they happen, but most of the time they don't. I don't understand why, but whatever. It's not my problem, right? But let's scoot this down a bit. You can zoom out to like 80. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. That looks great. Okay, cool. So we're moving right along to the technical etude for concert band. Or yeah, hold on, no. We gotta play the lyrical one more time. Because I remember our recording was not good. So we're gonna do 2 back-to-backs. I'm gonna play the concert band lyrical and then move on to the technical. Better, at least. Yeah, mostly really good. We just had a little kerfuffle, a few little kerfuffles. I think there was one like here, and then of course we missed this. We missed that low A there. But aside from those 2 little things, I think it went pretty well. I would say make sure we're paying close attention to all these accidentals. There are a lot of accidentals throughout here, right? We have a lot of natural signs. We have a sharp. we just have F sharps and this low F sharp down here. Just make sure we're being really attentive to where the accidentals are and where they aren't, right? And that goes on top of what we have here. So we need to make sure as a baseline we always have this, and where's a B flat, right? Except when we don't, right? Like that, and several other places, and B naturals right here. So just, I think that's the number one thing with this, besides just having that general pattern in your head. I feel like with a lot of these techno ones, a good piece of advice I can offer is just taking the rhythm and making a pattern out of it, just playing on one single note. Ta-ta, 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 ta-ta. Doing it like with arpeggio kind of pattern or a scale pattern. I don't know. You can choose whichever you like best. But just getting that subdivision in your head and make sure it's clear. It's super clear. Ta-ta, 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 ta-ta. And then of course being ready to move on when we get to this part, right? Yeah, another, like I said, play the accent. I think those are the two big things, is having the right subdivision in our head, the right rhythm, and the right accidentals. You will do great on this. Of course, there are little dynamics here. We got a forte, we go to piano in this section, and then in the middle we have this whole kind of we have a sostenuto, kind of more lyrical type thing. Making sure we're very clear with these articulations, right? So we're hearing ta ta ti ta ti ta ta ta. And I say the other thing, because I think this happens to me sometimes when I try to play this. Make sure we don't alter the time. So I feel like a tendency for me is sometimes I go slower when I get to the sostenuto here. So just make sure you keep the same rhythm. Or yeah, same rhythm, same time, same subdivision, same beat. Yeah, and this, be careful here. This might be a me thing, but for whatever reason, I like to play an F sharp or C sharp instead of a C natural here. I don't know exactly why, but just be aware of that. I think part of it is because a lot of these, the last note is a half step. Like here we have D flat to C. It is at like half step transition, A to B flat. We have a lot of chromaticism in here. So just be aware of where it's not chromatic and where it is chromatic. And that'll help you a lot with hearing these notes. And of course, when we get down here, just be ready to kind of like put a little extra effort on these lower notes, which shouldn't be too much to do, but just being ready for that. So that we're hearing that kind of that vibe going through this section. I can't think of anything else really to think about with this. It's all about the subdivision. First half, I mean, even with the second half, thinking about 16ths couldn't hurt, even though we don't have them. But I think the thought of thinking of the smaller subdivision will help us keep in time and keep this moving forward. I think that's the key thing we have to think about with this last half, is keep the subdivision in mind so that we keep moving forwards. Yeah, and that's all I can really think about with this particular etude. Just really define, I guess, like I said with the previous one, clearly define the different articulations. First part, we want to think a little bit full, but make sure the notes are still separated, I would say. And then when we get to these staccatos, these staccato arpeggiations here, make sure these are really separate. Because remember, staccato means separate, not short, separate. Or if you want to think more specifically, it's marked, right? No, I think it's just separate. Marked is a slightly different thing. But separate is what we want to think with these. And then, of course, here we want to think, still tongue them, I would say, but we're thinking a little bit longer. Dee, 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 da, dee, da, dee, da, dee, da, da, dee, dee, da, da, dee, da, dee, da, da, dee. And of course, that's different from the beginning because the beginning went ta-ta, 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 ta-ta. It's very articulate. If we were to put articulation here, it would just be the tenuto, right? We wouldn't think full length with all of these unmarked notes. And then shorter, but still full with these middle notes. And then very full with the ending notes. I'm going to play through one more time. So I feel like my first playthrough was mostly okay. Like I said, there's a few little things. I'm somewhere kerfuffled somewhere in here. And then we, of course, missed that A. But I think there might have been one other thing. But I'll play it one more time. Then we're going to move on to symphonic band. So anyways, here we go. If only we could just like splice those recordings together, right? That time, I think it was right around here. I guess that was maybe where I messed up the first time too. But this time, this low note came out well. We just fracked on that top note. Oh well, but that was better. That was overall much better. But let's move on, shall we? To symphonic band. Our last two etudes of the day. We can all go home. Not that we're not having fun here. I'm having fun personally. I hope you're enjoying this as well. I hope this is informative, helpful in your practices, preparing for. Okay, we're gonna do that. Preparing for All State. I'm gonna span this out a little bit. This one's a tiny bit wider than the others. Yeah, that's good. And then we're going to go this way just a tiny bit. Tiny bit more. Good enough. All right, cool. So let's do the symphonic ones. We're going to start with the lyrical, of course. So yeah. Let me get my mind in this one. All right, here we go. Okay, cool. So, not bad overall. Um, not the best, obviously. So just to point out a couple of little mistakes I made there. Where was it? Was it this D? Or this D? One of those Ds I played natural. So just make sure you're staying with the key that you provided. Play the right key, right? And I would say, I mean, like I said last time, don't be confused by the 3/8, all these 16ths. Now everything's a 16th or 32nd or 100 or 64th, I think is what the smallest one is here. Don't be confused by that. This is basically, think about this as 3/4. Quarter, the eighth note gets the beat, right? 1 and 1, 1, or 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1 E and 1, 1, 2, E, 3, 3, 1, 2. Just think about that as you go through this. You might even, if this is really tripping you up, you might even just go through and like count through it. Like think 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and then 3 here is right here. Yeah, because remember, if quarter note is the same as the eighth note here, if this is basically a quarter note, then that means the 16th note is an eighth note. So this is 1 and, or 2 and, right? And the and is the rest. So 3 must be here. And then here are 164ths. 64ths are 30 seconds, right? It's basically, just think about it as pickups. You're moving through from this F up to here. I would say practice it slower a little bit. Think 1 da 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 1 2 da 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 dum 1 ba da dum ba da dum bum bum. Just start slow, work your way up to the written tempo. What was the other little thing? There was something else towards here that I was not as good on. But yeah, like I said with the beginning, it's these 4 notes, or I should say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These first 6 notes are literally the most important notes of this entire etude. If you can't even get those to sound right, and you go into the audition and you play those first 6 notes very well, very out, no matter what comes afterwards, that's going to leave a blemish, unfortunately. So, I mean, it's, if you can prove, if you like mess up in the audition, if you like do like what I did, I wouldn't say don't try it like 3 or 4 times, but if you play it and you play that E and you're like, "Oh god, I feel horrible on this." I would say it's okay to say, if you know you can play it well, as like if you can like get a second shot at it, you can nail it. Ask them, "Can I try it again?" Sometimes they'll say yes. Sometimes they'll just say no. But I'm willing to bet most people will tell you yes. I know for me, if I was on a board for something like audition like this, I would probably say yeah, sure. And if they don't nail it the second time, sorry, but that's the truth. Like yes, as the audition judges, we're looking to hear great things and we want to reward people, but we also have to give out negatives for people who miss things, right? We can't just we can't give everyone all the spots. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. No matter what field you go in, I feel like music is just one of the, not worst, I wouldn't say worst ever, but it's just one of the more obvious where we see this a lot. Or I guess it's not. I guess if I really think about it, like most businesses, like you go on for interviews, right, to get a really great job, and if you do well, you get a great job and you get paid a lot of money. If you do not so well, you don't get a job and you're either stuck with your previous job that was maybe less money, or you're out of luck for a job and you need to keep on the job hunt. It's the same thing here. But I will say, and I meant to add this in at the beginning, but maybe I'll put a little thing if I remember. Um, one of my colleagues once told me that it's better to try for these kinds of things than to not, because you don't think you can make it. Because sure, if you show up and you don't play well, it sucks for everyone involved. The judges feel bad for you, you feel bad for yourself, your teacher, wherever they are, feel bad that you didn't make it through. But I think because of the high stakes, I'm going to say somewhat high stakes of these kinds of things, I think trying for them and putting in the effort to get good and play at a higher level is ultimately better to do than to not do it and wish you had of. Because, I mean, sometimes it goes both ways. Sometimes, I say there's probably more examples of more ways this can go, but this can go one of 3 ways. 1, you do really well. You make it through the audition. Awesome. Great. You do really badly, but you improve your skills a lot. You learn your skills. You could play this whole etude very well. And lots of other good stuff. You just improve your skills. And the third choice, of course, is you tried out, but you didn't put any effort into the practice, so you completely failed and you stayed the same. So if you put in effort, no matter which level you're at, you're going to succeed. Whether it be success where you made it into one of the top all-state bands or just one of the regional bands, awesome. Or if it's just that you increased your skills and know what to expect for this kind of thing. Because let's be real, your first year, you might not make it, and that's okay. That's a reality you have to accept and be okay with. If you go into any sort of competition type thing, expecting to hit the top from the very get-go, unless you're like a very big prodigy where you're just amazing at everything you do, odds are you're probably not going to make it, unfortunately. But if you don't try, you never know. So, just something to keep in mind. But anyways, I'm going to play this one more time, and we're going to move on. Because I think at this level, symphonic band level, usually this, if you've gotten this far, this means you've been playing these for a while, so you understand how these go. So think about all the things I talked about before, and I know that means you have to listen through for the rest of them, but just break things down, isolate the trouble spots, don't just play the first two measures a million times. Even though like I said, it's important to nail the beginning. If you don't nail the beginning, they've pretty much like written you off. Just break things down. That's the big thing. At this level, you should be doing pretty well. Not always, of course. I know for me, I wasn't. In fact, when I auditioned for All State, the only 2 years I auditioned for All State was, I'm pretty 90% sure that it was my 11th and 12th grade year of high school. And you know what? I failed both years completely. But the big thing about me is that I just kept going. I went to college. I got into a college for music. And I studied and practiced hard. And I got to where I am today. And you can do that too. Alright, so let's play symphonical and lyrical, and then we'll move on to the technical. I forgot to turn this mic off again, didn't I? Well, I'll remember for the technical. But just one note, I realized you probably shouldn't breathe in this last measure, like I just did, but if you have to, it's okay. Just try to take a quick breath, just to keep going. 'Cause I know for me, my personal philosophy with taking breaths as a tuba player, it's more important to have more air than it is to keep with phrases. Of course, there's exceptions. If you're playing something like Star Spangled Banner, where it has like pretty defined phrases, you do want to keep with those phrases. But for other things, it's important just to make sure you have enough air. So, and because this last phrase, because a lot of these phrases are pretty small, right? This last phrase is pretty nasty. I would say if you have to breathe in this last measure, try to breathe earlier in the measure, not towards the end. So think like that. Or I think here is a moderate place to breathe, but I think if you have to breathe in this phrasing, here's the number one option. I'd say number 1, number 2, number 3. And then 4 is here just because that shows that you can't really keep your phrasing. Plus this one, I feel like part of the importance of this is you have to lead here. I know for me, whenever I play this etude, I don't just stop the crescendo here, but I think crescendo into that G flat, that high note there. And plus, that'll help you kind of hit it higher, reach it. Anyways, shall I play a technical now and get to the last little portion of the stream? Let me make sure. Oh, this one's a tall boy. But that looks fine. Can we scroll up a tiny bit to see it? Yeah, no. Whatever. You know this is. I misspelled that, but I don't feel like changing it. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so here we go. Here's the symphonic band technical. I think this is probably the most difficult out of all of these etudes. I might actually spend some time actually trying to nail this off stream and record this. I'm not going to make any promises with that, but I know this is one for me that as I've been practicing it, especially this we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it once I play it. Here we go. If it wasn't for my, I think 3 little mistakes, where was it? I know I messed. Was it here? Yeah, it was here. And then here too, because that opening, I feel like that opening felt super solid, felt really good. If it weren't for those two little meddling measures, it would have been great. Anyways, but yeah, so a couple things with this. Stay attentive. There's a ton of notes in here, so make sure you're always playing the right notes. I know, like I've been playing there, like I played there. I think I keep on wanting to try to play this A and this measure, and this isn't about the original version of this. We talked about that. I'm not gonna get into that again. I still stand by what I said last time, but I'm not gonna talk about it. Um, and this isn't about that, but this is just about weirdness with, I don't know. Anyways, basically, you want to just keep the same fingering all the way through this. Because, I mean, like with a lot of the other pieces, we're staying within the arpeggios, those triads, right? Which the cool thing about these triads is a lot of these have similar fingerings. Like this one in particular, we're going F, D, B flat. It's all the same, right? And then right after it, we go, this one's, well, no, it's still easy. We have E flat, C, and A. Just 1, 1, 1, 2, right? So not bad there. Assuming I'm going to use fingerings, the fingers I'm going to reference, of course, are assuming you're on a B flat tuba. If you're on a C tuba, obviously it's different. But I know from my experience working in Georgia, 95% of tubists I've seen in the Georgia music high school, middle school scene have been B flat tubas. I think I've literally only seen like maybe 2 or 3 people in high school who played something other than a B flat tuba. Yeah, but anyways, that doesn't matter. But yeah, so use these fingerings to your advantage to keep the same fingerings down, so you don't have to do as much work with changing fingerings. I know for me, since I'm playing on a C, this one is easy. It's just all first valve. But then this pattern is a little bit trickier for me because I'm switching from 2, 3, which I guess I could just do 2, but I prefer to play E flat with 2 and 3, that partial. 2, 3, open, 1, 2. Which, thinking extensively, you could think 2, 3, 2, 3, 3 in a similar style to B flat, but then you have to play this C with a weird fingering, and this A with a weird, slightly out of tune fingering. So it's whatever works best for you. Places like this, it's up to you what you prefer. And then I would say with all of this section, because I think this called moto up until here or here is the tricky section. I mean, of course, the whole thing is tricky because we have basically four sections. We have the opening section. Just think, even though it says passante, you want to think light. I would say the passante comes in with these long notes. We can like emphasize these. We're gonna emphasize these long notes, but then the notes in between, think more articulate on them. And I think that'll help to give the passante while still keeping light and fluid. Because we want to keep with this tempo. It's not the slowest tempo, but it's also not a fast tempo. It's somewhere, like it says, moderato. It's very moderate, but it still offers challenge with these types of notes, right? So we have that section. Then the calmato with the dun da 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 da. And I would say with these, isolate these down, especially this part. Isolate it down to just those 3 notes. Tai ta, tai ta, tai ta, tai ta, ta tai ta, ta tai ta, ta tai ta ta ta, ta 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 ta. Just spend some time thinking about that, and I wouldn't say just like spend some time isolating those. Take it slower. And I would say also you might want to take it lower if you feel uncomfortable playing it in these higher ranges like this. Just the big thing is practice it. Don't just practice it the way it's written, but practice it in all the ways you need to. Because I think also a good thing, something to think about with practice, something I try to do, and something I say sometimes. I think sometimes it's good to try different things to get around the problem, to confuse our minds so that we find the real solution. I know, who's it? Bodsvik. I was having lunch with Bodsvik and a couple other people at this festival one time. And he had a really, or is it dinner? I don't know. One or the two. He had a really great quote, which was he was talking about like practicing and was comparing it to a stream, like a stream of water. If we're imagine like what we're practicing is a rock in the middle of the stream, what is the most efficient way of this stream to get through or around this rock? It's just to move around the rock, right? Because if we move straight through the rock, eventually, yes, the rock will erode, or the stream will erode the rock, right? But that will take a long time. So it's important to go around and find other solutions, not just I'm going to play this exactly as written every single time and it's going to be amazing eventually. That's the thing, eventually. So it's important to take your time with it and break it down into different chunks so that when we go back to playing it the way we want to, it's less big of a rock, but it's just it's whatever. It's just yeah, it's fine. So just chew on that for a little bit. But just break things down into different little chunks so that when you go to play the whole, it's a lot smoother. Yeah, but anyways, yeah, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 little sections. The fourth is kind of a repeat of the opening, basically. It's like a tag. This is like an A prime kind of thing if you want to think about that. I don't know. But, so the beginning, obviously the issue here is ta, 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 ta. And we have one occurrence of the main part of the konmoto, right? Ta, 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 ta. For the most part, we're just sitting on this pattern. And yeah, I'm not going to go back into last week's discussion. If you want to hear about the changes between this and the original, which is the Bozovich, you can go back to last stream, where I talk about it. I don't feel like talking about it really today, because I feel like it's, I don't know, anyways. But yeah, and then we just want to think smooth. This is basically a lyrical section. And then, like we've been saying, we want our articulation changes to be very sudden and match what's there. So that when we get here, we shift from Dia da 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 da. Like milk this. Make this like a super lyrical, like amazing. I would even think about like maybe add your own crescendo, decrescendo type things if you want. That's vaguely how I'm thinking about this. I kind of build, and then dia da da dee da da dee da. That's how I'm kind of thinking with this. But make your own things. Whatever works for you. Just like I've said, you have to convince the audience that that's what you want to do. You have to be intentional. And then when you get here, throw that all out of the window and go back to our technical style that we started with. Dia ta 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 da dee da da da. And you can decide how much you want to slow down in those last couple measures of that little before the a tempo there. I don't think you have to do major amounts of slowdown, but once again, it's very interpretive, so you can do what you like. Just don't treat this as a stop sign where it's ta ta ti 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 ta 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 ta. Just keep it flowing. You don't have to slow down a lot, because especially since it says little by little, that tells me at least it's not major, right? If they wanted this to be like a really big rallentando, this is said like grande, right? Like we're getting a coffee or something. I don't know. But yeah, so you don't have to do a lot with this, is my opinion. But I'm gonna play this one more time, and then if I have final thoughts, I'll say them. But otherwise, we're done for the day. That's all I have. So let's play it again, and then we'll talk really briefly, and the stream will be over. Yay! Thank you. And I probably should have said this halfway through, but thank you so much for tuning in. I checked earlier, and looks like there was a good bit of you here, which is awesome. I love that a lot of people were able to catch this live. As like I said, like I changed the title and description to, please, 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 anytime I'm doing something like this, except if it's like maybe like a recital type thing, even then feel free to ask questions, but feel free to ask me whatever, whenever. I do these for two reasons. One is because I'm lazy and I'm not good about recording and editing videos a lot of times. Uh, so I do these so they're there, so you can just access these, and I don't have to worry as much about editing something later. And then the other reason is because I really want to connect with you and give you more specific advice. Because, I mean, I feel like a lot of my advice is good, but I'm not addressing everything and anything, right? There's still a lot of things that I'm missing because I don't know what you're struggling with, right? Could be that you just really struggle with slurs, maybe, or you struggle with like this specific articulation. This one's kind of weird, I will say. I like to think of it as if it's right. It's a fusion between this and this. We're trying to bridge the gap between staccato and legato, basically. So think like da 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 da. Basically think about it as keep your air moving forward, but use your tongue to separate. Okay, well, anyways, just wanted to say that really quickly, but let's play some Fundamental Technical, and we'll call it a stream. Well, yeah, I think I may, even though going against what I said earlier about me not being the best about recording videos, like I said, I think I might try to do one for that. Because that one for me is definitely one that's very tricky. Um, but thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I always enjoy doing these streams where I play and share some of my knowledge to you, and just spreading tuba. Can never be enough tuba out there, right? But yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your evening or day, wherever you are. Well, I think for most Georgia people it's evening, but anyways. Um, yeah, I hope you have a great one, and I'll see you next time. Stay tuned. Like I said, um, the next stream I'm going to plan on having is going to be about scales. We're going to talk about some techniques with learning scales, and then we're going to go behind the theory of diatonic major scales and talk a little bit about some more special chromatic scales. I might even I think I'm going to do my best to fit into one stream, but it might be two. We'll see what happens. I need to plan it out. This is going to be for these all-state ones, I really didn't do too much planning besides just saying this is the time that we're doing this. I'm doing this on my YouTube channel, and I didn't really prepare too much other than that. Or I guess just making sure I have access to the music, so I don't have to go take 5-10 minutes to find it all in between each one. But scale one, I'll definitely have to take some time and really plan it out and make a general game plan, lesson plan, slideshow to show that off. But anyways, I hope you have a great rest of your evening, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye. See ya. Yeah, have a great one. Bye.